Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome to the show. Oh my goodness, at the time of recording this, we've been in the portal of the Scorpio full moon, and we've had Mercury retrograde, we've had the eclipse, we've had all the things. So this has been a potent week. And I'm imagining that you are also feeling this energy too. So perfect episode to talk about overcoming the fear of rejection and judgment so that we can release and shed that. So we're going to be diving into that. Before we do, I have been working super excitedly on some amazing magical new lunar mystery classes for you, and I wanted to share them because they are potent magical technology. We're guiding into ritual, and it's also a masterclass to help you with some of the common problems and challenges that women who are aspiring to be spiritual leaders, creating their soul business, are here navigating. So if you are inclined to join us for a ritual, if you love the podcast and you're like, okay, give me some of this magical tech, then join us, have a little look. There is a whole schedule of them for the year. So check those out, join us, head to www.nicolebarton.co.uk/mystery class. Aside from that though, we're going to jump into the episode. So on The Secret Witch Show today, I explore the common and innocent fears of rejection and judgment that call for women to love themselves whilst creating a magical business, and the real underlying ancestral wound that lies beyond the surface blocks. In this episode, I explore how the witch wound could be holding you back, the gold of learning to love ourselves in our triggers, and how to work with magical technology such as archetypes and shadow work to hold up a mirror and heal this deeper wound. I also shared from the heart about the power of vulnerability and the underlying magical principle as to why vulnerability is deep medicine for those women who need the same medicine we have drunk ourselves. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to our episode on how to overcome fear of rejection and judgment to create your spiritual business. This is such an important fear for the women who are here to be leaders and create businesses from soul. So firstly, before we even dive into that, I just want to share that this is such a normal thing for women who are here to express their gifts, to birth their spiritual gifts into the world through a business, to create their business from soul, to be their medicine, whatever language you want to use for it. Like, this is such a normal challenge. And how this fear will show up, just so that you can kind of place, if this is you, like how this fear shows up is that women will often feel this deeper call to soul and yet avoid living that deep purpose because there's this deeper fear. So it may not always be that you know that there's this fear of rejection and judgment. There may just be this sense of like, I'm called here to more and I can't possibly live it. Like, it feels too big for me. My gifts feel too big for me. And as you, throughout this episode, hopefully you're going to come to understand, I'm going to talk more to this in a moment, you're going to come to understand there is this kind of secret, hidden reason why until now you have struggled to bring your gifts into the world. And so this woman who typically experiences the fear of rejection and judgment and like kind of creating a spiritual business from your gifts often feels deeply sensitive. She will often people please. These are other ways that this shows up. And she will hide and mask and shame herself. She won't share her truth. Like she'll be kind of, you'll find, you know, when you find yourself saying like one thing and secretly deep in the back of your mind, you're like, that's not really what I think. Like, there'll be this sense of like, there's one version of you that loves crystals and all the woo and his spirits and all of these things that you know and you admit to yourself. And then outwardly, you'll be like hiding that, like really innocently as well. Like this is like, it feels scary to share your truth. Like, and that has you not use your voice. It has you also not sharing that feminine vulnerability. Like there's this sense of like wearing a mask, wearing some armor, like almost like a second skin, to stop yourself from being rejected and judged. And as I mentioned, this can kind of show up in the way that it's like this sense of being split in two, this sense of like there being this secret version, hence the name Secret Witch, this secret version of yourself that is really here, like called to create a business from your gifts, from your medicine, from your spiritual gifts, and this part of you that tries to conform to the mundane world. Like, so there's this sense of like spiritual self and mundane self, and I've heard women refer to this before as like my spiritual job that they're trying to like birth into the world, and like my earthly job. And that's the sense of this kind of this fear. I'm going to speak to the archetypal energetic of that in a moment, but for now, that kind of theme of like feeling split between two wills almost is quite important in this particular topic of rejection and judgment fear. And because of all of this, other symptoms, other ways of this showing up is perhaps just having a hypersensitive nervous system, like this sense of like being on edge, like not being able to fully just be comfortable in your own skin. And again, like it might be that you're not even aware that it's rejection and judgment that's creating that. It might just be that you're aware of your hypersensitive nervous system. You're aware of like that, you know, the symptoms, the sensations, the lack of energy. And yeah, just that might be all that you know. And there's secretly a hidden, deeper fear of being rejected and judged. I can't remember if I talked about this one, but there's another sense of like feeling suppressed. This goes with the splitting into two. There's a sense in this woman who's struggling with rejection and judgment, and this is me included, by the way. So I'm going to speak to that as well in this episode. Like, there's a sense of suppression. It's like there's this life force energy that is coiled up and depleted and not expressed. And so again, the symptoms of that are feeling burned out. Like if you are suppressing who you are, that is literally going to take energy. It takes energy to pretend to be who we're not. And if you are kind of trying to conform to the mundane world and fit in, just in case you're going to be rejected and judged, that is going to exhaust you. And overall, all of those things mean that it's very difficult for a woman who's dealing with this particular block of fear of rejection and judgment, which again is completely innocent. I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Like, it's understandable why, given all of that, it's going to be really difficult for her to create a soul business that you came here for. And the reason I keep saying it's innocent is because one of the things that's really, really important in the alchemy of all of this is love. Like, if we start beating ourselves up because we have this fear of being rejected and judged, that is not going to be very healing. Like, women need, not even like, I'm just going to say it, like, you need to love yourself. Like, we have this wounding, and I'm including myself in this. Like, I have alchemized this to a degree, and I'm going to share more in this in a moment. alchemize this to a deep degree so that I can guide women in, because I'm a big believer that we have to embody it in our medicine. And it's still a wound that I hit up against. And so women who have this wounding, another thing that's important to say is that often they think that their real problem is just that they aren't capable, they aren't doing enough, or they aren't able to express. And usually they'll go round and round in their fears and blocks, like procrastination, distraction, imposter syndrome, thinking that those are the issues, those surface level blocks are the issues, and they think that they need to fix those, when really there's a deeper underlying ancestral wound that all of these symptoms point to that needs some love. And as I said, it is not your fault that you feel this way, and that you aren't yet creating, like being the more that you're here to be, like you're not yet creating your soul work. There's just simply an ancestral wound that wants some love, that wants some healing by you, some loving acceptance by you, not even by anyone else. I'm going to speak to that as well. And I'm bringing quite a fiery energy to this, because it's like, I really want you to know that you are not failing. Like, it has just been this deeply unconscious fear of rejection and judgment, and essentially the witch wound. And the deeper fear, if you are here to be a magical one, serving your soul gifts, serving your spiritual gifts, serving your magic, that is the deeper fear. The fear is, and it's literally been passed through our DNAs, in our cells, that we are going to be burned at the stake for our medicine. That is typically the one thing that I have seen common to all women who are here to be medicine women, witches, coaches, healers, whatever you are here to be, and however you bring that into the world, in whichever form that takes. If you are here to be a medicine woman, you will suffer from the witch wound, from this kind of not being able to express your medicine. And the fear of being rejected and judged and burned at the stake for it, chased out the village, ostracized, outcast. These are the fears that have women not able to serve their medicine. And usually, like I say, they kind of then go to the surface level blocks to fix those, instead of loving themselves in this ancestral wound. And this is largely because the self-help world focuses on the surface level blocks. And so that if we're kind of immersed in the self-help world, personal development world, rather than the world of real magic, real ancestral magic, archetypal work, shadow work, that sort of thing, which we teach here in the Archetypal Apothecary Path, the self-help world will have you focus on the surface level things and fixing those. But the magical lens of real magical technology will show you a new opportunity for healing. And I share this because that is the new opportunity that I'm passionate about. Like, that is the very reason why I get up and do what I do. Even when, oh my goodness, I'm just feeling like so many tingles. Like, even when I do not want to. Like, did I want to share my voice today? No, I did not. Like, I have had so much resistance today to recording this podcast episode, probably because of the topic and because of the remedy that's underneath this. I'm going to talk to that a little bit as well. The Archetypal Apothecary remedy has been revealing all sorts of stuff to me recently, so I'm mid-alchemy with her on a deeper level. And yeah, it's like we have to learn to heal ourselves, to tend this witch wound, so that we can move through. And as we do, as we love ourselves, as we reclaim the parts of ourselves that we've judged, shamed, like rejected ourselves, essentially that's what shadow work is. Shadow work is a reclamation of all the pieces of ourselves that we have pushed into the darkness. And the witch is one that gets pushed right back into the darkness without us even realizing. She's so far in the darkness that we don't even know that that is what is happening. Like, our witch has been shamed, persecuted, judged, and we have pushed her as far away as possible to avoid the real work of being that medicine woman. And my guess is, my sense is, if you're listening, you did not come here to hide and not serve the medicine that you were born to serve to the collective. So, number one, what we're working here with is not rejection and judgment, and like isolating those things and going into those and being like, okay, we're going to heal those things. We are healing the witch wound. That is what we're doing, this ancestral wound that is really the root of all our rejection and judgment fears. And that is essentially the reason why I have birthed my work. Like, I am here for the witch. I'm here for all witches. I'm here for the witches who feel outcast. I'm here for the witches who feel judged. I'm here for the witches who fear me and my work. I'm here for all the witches who just like are in so much fear of expression that they just don't know what to do, and yet they feel this deeper calling. Those are the women that I am here for, and that's also been very much my own journey. So I feel your heart, trust me. And yeah, I just feel quite emotional at that, actually. So that being very clear now, is essentially, you know, we think about the witch wound. If you want to explain it in mundane lens, we talk about epigenetics. Like, essentially the fear of being persecuted has literally gone into the cells of our ancestors, and that has passed down epigenetically through our DNA. Like, that fear is trapped in the cells and has literally come through our lineage. So if you were born into a family of witches, and even if you don't know, like, this might be ages ago in your lineage, and you may not be aware. For me, I had this magical experience where I found out that one of my ancestors was part of a movement called, I think it was the Peculiar People, which is a very funny name, very pertinent to the witch being seen as peculiar, but essentially they were faith healers. And so it really is like, I had absolute goosebumps when I found that out. Like, this is in my lineage. These are my ancestors, were witches. So it makes perfect sense that this is why I'm here to do this work and guide women into this work as well. And essentially, it's that fight between magic and logic, that fear of being rejected and judged for who we really are at our soul level. And I'm going to be speaking a little bit to one of the archetypal remedies from our archetypal apothecary path, which this episode really is essentially based around. And I'm going to speak to the magical technology we can harness for healing this. And this is essentially what my whole path offers, and the reason why I do this work. And the remedy, the archetypal apothecary remedy for this episode, essentially is Naja. Naja is the Indian cobra. And it's just been yet another magical experience with her, actually, as I was chatting to one of my guides. And I'm not going to share too much more on that, but just to let you know that there was already also, as I was reflecting on Naja, meditating on her before recording this episode, so much magic dropped in. So she is potent. She is a potent energy. If we think about archetypal energies and archetypal energy of the snake, like, there's so much medicine in this particular archetype, and I am super excited about this. We're actually birthing a crucible for Naja very shortly. Probably by the time this is out, there will be the first tease of Naja and her snake energy. And funnily, I didn't actually know, again, like, I didn't know that I was going to be sharing this episode and in this particular order, just in synchronicity with launching, or let's say releasing, because I prefer the word releasing, it feels a lot less masculine, into the world. And yeah, so that's quite magical in and of itself as well. But Naja is essentially, if you think about the energy of the Indian cobra, it's that kind of like very hypnotic, like there's this sense of charm, there's this sense of also like being caged, like there's this caging of the snake in Indian culture, and like hypnotic charm, like for snake charming and things like that. But there's also like a sense of trapped kundalini, trapped life force, suppression, being coiled up, as I was speaking to earlier. And essentially Naja is about expression. She's about expression and our fear of expression in shadow. And there's this sense of split into two wheels, with this sense of like duty, this sense of duty to fit in, to people please, to be charming. And there's also this opposite end of the scale where there can be that people pleasing, and eventually there's this such suppression that we flip to the other end of the shadow pole and become venomous, rebellious, like spitting poison, because we just feel trapped in our own skin and can't shed our skin. Like, this is the energy of Naja, and often there will be, with Naja, metaphysical symptoms. There'll be like throat symptoms, like where we struggle to share our voice. Funnily enough, I was a guest on other podcasts recently, and on both podcasts I was sharing my story about the witch wound, and my voice just completely got taken away, and it was hilarious. Like, both of the hosts commented on it and were like, oh my goodness, this is so magical. So if you want to hear more on those, I think they're on my Instagram links. They were good episodes, one about burnout and the other about living from soul in the witch wound. And yeah, so there'll be metaphysical throat symptoms, and there's this sense with the two wheels, the gold in Naja. What Naja can help us to actually alchemize when we work with her is that there is a way to create union and express the truth of our soul from love in a way that doesn't feel rebellious, doesn't feel like we're people pleasing. There's just the truth of our soul and us able to express from love. And that is the alchemy, really, that Naja provides to us. She's also very, like, if you think about Kundalini energy, she's very much about reclaiming our pleasure, very much about reclaiming, you know, our truthful, full, sensual, feminine expression. And there's another kind of thing that goes with this, in that, like, Naja is also the most spiritual snake. So when we talk about the witch wound, women who need Naja have this deep longing to be in their spiritual gifts. They are spiritual. They're the most spiritual snake, in essence. And they feel this fear of rejection and judgment, which has them split their will into two, and they've got this longing to be spiritual, but they're not able to fully express it. And so they show up in the mundane world differently to how they actually want to show up and express from their magic. So the gift is this union piece, this learning how to alchemize and heal our expressions so that we can express truthfully, so we can show up, be our medicine. And in the gold as well, people who alchemize and work with Naja as an archetypal remedy, and what I mean by that is really, you know, being in communion with her spirit. There's like a way of working with her in deep inquiry, as a mirror, as a lens about self-inquiry, and a way of embodying her through ritual, through practices that we work with in this path. And as we do, there's like so much healing and alchemy, and there's like people who have Naja and want Naja's gold, they are quite noble, quite loving and deeply sensitive magical ones. They have this deep sense of soul purpose. They have this deep sense of duty to their soul purpose. And when they're not living that, they will feel this intense, revengeful, kind of poisonous, toxic feeling. And that is essentially the witch wound, like being played out. So there's this higher sense of duty, essentially, that they have, and there's this kind of split between their higher spiritual nature and their lower animal nature, and their two wills are kind of being pulled in two different directions, and that is the call for Naja. And as I mentioned, there's a sense of Naja initiating me, and this is what archetypal remedies do. They initiate us. They show us, they reveal more to us. It's not a logical linear path, it's a very magical feminine path. And really what we are talking about here is the reclamation of your divine feminine. We're talking about reclamation of our feminine essence, our feminine mystery. So this is what the archetypal apothecary path is all about. And at the same time, as much as I'm embodied in Naja in many, many ways, and this is why I'm teaching her, like there's a deep sense of like I am out the spiritual closet, which is what Naja initiates women into, but there's also like a deeper sense of what I'm working with with Nadia at the moment, and she, every time I teach something on the leader as I'm creating the content, because I'm very sensitive and open to these archetypal energies, I always get my own hit of it first, which makes it quite interesting in many ways, because it's quite serving, because I get all the material for liberation to be able to share how the remedy works when I come to teaching it. But it's also quite an intense period for me as I'm birthing these things into the world. And so I have been in the midst of some deep material for liberation, and it's all around like birthing archetypal apothecary is this new modality. If you've been listening to the show, you'll have heard that journey unfold. And it's also not entirely new. So when I say this, like birthing the new archetypal apothecary modality into the world, it's not really new. It's a path that has been trialled and tested for 3 years with strong results for both me and women who have walked the path already. But now it's got like this clarity and precision. And I am feeling, as I've like arrived at this place of like, okay, we've got clarity, we've got precision, we've got strategy, we've got structure, we've got all the masculine supportive things holding me in my feminine flow. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to implement that strategy that I've been created. And that is feeling so deeply vulnerable, like expressing that into the world. And particularly given that I'm here to guide women into creating their businesses, which I know I'm embodied in because A, I've created a successful soul business before, so I'm fully embodied in that, and B, I've also guided other women in creating successful businesses from soul. So like I know that this is my medicine to serve, and I'm in deeper spirals of my own Nadia wounding because I'm in a big expansion. I've restructured my business, I have restructured my team, like I've literally changed everything, and it's almost feeling like there's this sense of like starting from scratch, like having to express my journey, my own facing of business trials that I have faced before, that I've navigated, that I know how to navigate, and like leaning into a deeper level of trust that I can do this again. And also like sharing my soul journey with creating my soul business for like version 2.0, like this is feeling like vulnerable to me, because it's like people think, particularly in the self-development world, people think that I'm just like, I've already done the work and that's it. And I think this is like really humbling to share, because like what I want to be very clear on is that yes, I am a god. Yeah, I am a guide. Yes, I am here to help women create their own soul businesses and create success from that in all the material forms that we come to know and love in the mundane world. And that doesn't make me immune to navigating the transition myself. Like that doesn't mean that I am not also spiraling into deeper spirals of the same fear. And in many cases, it's actually even bigger. It's like actually even more challenging as we go into deeper expansion. So there's like more to hold. So I can honestly say that I'm expressing Nadia in shadow at the moment because I want to hide on the regular. And there's this sense of like fearing rejection in case people don't see the value in what I'm choosing to show up and serve. But the alchemy here isn't like, okay, here I am all shiny and perfect, and like I've created this magical business and you can do the same. Like this is how it's shown in the coaching world, which feels very superficial, and I've been feeling into this a lot recently. There's this sense of like the coaching world only showing the perfection, only showing like I've created XYZ and it's all magical, and like here's how to do it. Like this isn't what I'm creating with Archetypal Apothecary. What I'm creating is a path that is really authentic, really in integrity, and really being created from a place of like I am walking this with you. Like I am in the same journey. Yes, I have walked this journey before. I can guide you in it, and I am still vulnerably sharing my own soul process in this deeper spiral. Like, I am still feeling the feels, and yes, I have alchemized and healed so much. Like, I wouldn't have the same level of fear around expressing my magic. You know, there's a nuance in how, in the sorts of fears of Naja's that I experience, and still I can understand, I can relate, I can resonate, I can feel your heart as you journey alongside me. And really, this time round, this spiral round, actually, before I say more about that, the alchemy here is that I am still choosing to show up and express even when my voice quakes. And it really, really does. Like, it's really challenging for me to show up and share this episode even today, and share all of this now that I'm sharing with you, because my fear is like, well, women are just going to think that you have no value. Like, but actually, I am the one sharing the path from authenticity, from integrity, from vulnerability, from courage. And for a long time, I haven't witnessed that for myself. So it's even quite powerful for me to own this here. But this isn't going to be your goddess, like 7 figures in 5 minutes kind of business creation. Like, this is true business creation. This is honesty, integrity, true expression. And that's what Naja's here for. That's what Naja is here to have us initiated into, is the truth, is true, honest, authentic expression from integrity, from the feminine, from love, from truth. And that's what I'm being called into, is this deeper level of devotion to trusting spirit, to trusting truth, to trusting full expression, to trusting magic, and a deeper devotion to share my vulnerability, to share my own soul process, my own soul journey, which I've been avoiding. And this is what shadow does. Shadow has us forget. Shadow has us like basically forget everything. And it was essentially having me forget my own principles, because my underlying core principle of all the work we do, which I'm going to talk more to, is the fact that people are medicine. My vulnerable sharing of my story and my challenges is medicine for women. That is what's going to call in the women who need this medicine. And so that has been a beautiful reminder recently to create from that place. And it actually reminds me of a poem, which I will read at the end, I think, to close our episode out today. It's one of my favourite poems, and it just really summed up the energetic that is required for us to be creating our soul business. So I'll share that a bit later. But yeah, what else was I going to share? So facing this, and like, this is what I've been doing. Like, yesterday I had some funnily enough, hit up against some judgment from family about what creating and leaning into tension of creating this business requires of me. Like, I had some judgment from some family who were like, what are you doing? Like, this is madness. Like, why are you leaning into this level of sensation? And I instantly like went into that sensation of like, oh my God, someone's judging me for leaning into creating what I want to create. They're judging my vision. They're criticizing my vision. And where before all of this work with Naja, I would have just been like absolute spitting venom. Like, I'd have been like, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, don't judge me. Like, I was able to navigate that completely differently. Like, hold the sensation of like, this is my choice. This is something that I'm choosing. And I understand it makes no sense to you. And I'm still going to hold that tension. And I responded from a place of more vulnerability. And that was so radically different from before. And the same with one of my guides, who I projected this like, felt like I was being judged for not being committed enough, when I'm like the most committed person that I know. So it's like this sense of like, I'm in the shadow of overcommitting. Like, it was so funny because, again, Naja has helped me to learn the gift of expressing my truth with love and being able to co-create a powerful exchange in which I owned my power and my truth and full expression. So this is really the gift of Nadia. This is where I've embodied her deeply, and as I say, there's still room for expansion, which is important for you to know. And also, we're not used to spaces where our true expression is actually safe. And I was reflecting on this as well, because one of the gifts that I had in my own journey was this beautiful sovereign circle. And this is the same energetic that is created in my group Crucibles. We have a beautiful community which goes way beyond the average space. And this is something that was really important to me, because in my own journey, one of the things that did help me alchemize and heal my fear of rejection and fear of judgment was having a space that was sovereign, that would reflect truth, and we're so used to shutting down truth and just people pleasing and being like, yeah, do you know what, I'm going to join you in the victim triangle and just placate you with some yeah, you're justified to feel like that. Whereas in this space that I was in, and in the way in my group Crucibles, the way we hold it is really leaning into the edges of sharing, I hear you, I feel your heart in how stressful this trigger is for you, because our triggers are really, really important and will come up during this journey. But there's a way in our groups and the groups that I've been in where we hold that person and be like, I feel you, I hear you, and would you like a reflection? And if they're open to that, there's some real alchemy in that reflection being offered. It's like a deep respect of do you want a reflection? And if they do, then there's a place of okay, here's my truth in the most loving way. And there's such a power in that, for us to be able to feel safe to truthfully share our full expression and own our power to receive and provide, that is such a gift. That is if there's a space that, whether that's with me, whether that's with someone else, wherever that space is, some space like that is part of the deepest reclamation of our true expression, where we can show up and share powerfully and vulnerably and own our stuff without being rejected. And that said, I also want to just highlight that there's also during that journey, I also did feel rejected, and I want to honor that, because there is also so much alchemy in rejection and experiencing rejection in me. And again, this comes back to sometimes rejection is serving. Sometimes our deepest fear happening is also serving. So when I talk about the way I create the groups, we aren't avoiding triggers. Our triggers are the places where we can find gold. So again, my invitation to you as you're navigating this piece about rejection and judgment is not to avoid rejection and judgment, but to go into them, to allow ourselves to find the gold, to be with our triggers, to love ourselves. And I'm going to speak more to that a little bit in a minute, but I have been rejected in all the ways in the last 9 months. I've been rejected by clients. I've been rejected by felt rejected, actually, let's say. It's not necessarily true that I was rejected. I felt rejected in all sorts of ways. And there has been some deep pain in that. And there has also been some deep alchemy. And I'm here to say that, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. If you are here to be a spiritual leader, the chances are, particularly if you're here to be a witchy spiritual leader, that just adds another layer of being a leader, because the witch was not liked. But if you are here to be a witchy spiritual leader and serve your gifts, most of the time people are going to love that, but there's also going to be the occasion where people don't love that. And the work is to be okay with that, to love ourselves in those deep wounds, to reclaim our power from love, to be in our truthful expression from love. And the reason why that is so important, and the reason why healing the witch wound is so important, is essentially the foundation of my path. And the reason I say that is because, as I'm just going back to saying, the thing that I'd forgotten in my own expression recently is that people are medicine. And I truly mean that, and I truly know that to be true. Like, we all have our own unique archetypal essence that we are, essentially it's like a light bulb, and we're beaming that light out into the world, and it's a particular colour. Like, we have that light bulb that's our essence, that's our medicine, that's our heroine's journey, that we have walked through and embodied the learnings of, and it's usually based around our core wound as a child. Mine particularly was about power. And like and expression, obviously, hence being a witch, so power, medicine, expression. These things are in my light bulb, and they are beaming out to the world. And anybody who needs that medicine will see it. If I am vulnerable, if I'm courageous, if I show up and express myself from truth. And where we can use the masculine marketing lens, and we can be like, okay, our gifts are, we're going to teach Reiki, or we're going to do this, that, and the other, and like, that can work to a degree. Like, there's going to be, you know, people will eventually come in if we're saying, okay, we're going to teach Reiki, or whatever it is. Like, people come and have some Reiki, whatever it is. But that is not your medicine. Like, there are, I don't even know how many Reiki practitioners there are, actually. But there's a lot. But there's only one of you and your unique expression. And that is what will draw in your dream clients. So the work of liberating our fear of rejection, the work of liberating our fear of judgment is so important. Like, it is our full expression of that light bulb, that unique soul essence that will call in our soul clients. And it's not just me saying this, like, there is an underlying magical principle, a universal law that all of my work is centered around. And that is similia similibus. And what that means is like cures like. So there is an actual scientific universal magical principle that explains this. And it's literally meaning that your full expression is medicine for those who need it, because your full expression will cure those women who are like you. Or at least activate, let's put that differently, it will activate healing in them. So women like us are drawn to us for healing. We're a mirror for them. And that is such an important foundational principle of the work that we do in this path, is helping you to reclaim your full expression to be medicine for the collective. Because people know what they're struggling with. They know, in my instance, for example, like, I have journeyed with the fear of creating a business from soul. Like, I've journeyed that, I've embodied it, I've embodied, like, expressing my magic into the world. I've embodied owning my power. I've embodied, like, truly owning my medicine, my magic. And me sharing vulnerably about what I've learned along that journey helps the women who need that to find me and find the medicine that I am able to provide for them, so that they can walk the same path. That's essentially what like cures like means. And yeah, women like us are drawn to us for healing, and we're a mirror. So this is why it's super important for me to share my vulnerability and own how I am choosing more powerfully through it and navigating that, because it's helpful for you to know that you're not doing this alone, that someone is walking ahead, that someone's shining a light on what's possible. And your fears, like I said, may be slightly different in context to my fears here. It's likely yours will be about sharing your spiritual side more, about expressing your message and stepping out of the spiritual closet and committing to expressing your voice and sharing vulnerably. Like, that's still my work, to share vulnerably. Where mine aren't so much around, you know, sharing my magical witchiness. Like, I've embodied that deeply, and that's why I can guide women there into creating a magical business via expression. But these wounds in a deeper spiral of the same Naja essence are still showing up about expressing vulnerably. So how do I choose differently? How do we heal this? And this is the same invitation for you. Like, we learn to like there's various different ways, there's various different magical technologies we can work with, but here I'm talking about like inner child work. We're holding our little girl, we're lovingly tending her, like what does she need? And then like shadow work, ask where have we felt this fear of rejection and judgment before? Like what is coming up for us? Like what's the deeper fear? Was our little girl rejected before? You know, what's the kinky pleasure? Shadow work again, what's the kinky pleasure that we get from being rejected? Like, and holding ourselves, like nourishing, this is embodiment, like nurturing our body to let our nervous system know that this is safe, like we are choosing into this. And as we do that more and more, we're able to allow ourselves, the more powerful parts of ourselves, to lead, to express, to be vulnerable. Like the question is, are we going to allow our little girl to lead, who's just clinging on, like waiting, wanting to be safe? Or can we learn to love her, meet her, let her know she's safe to fully express who she is, and that will have the desired effect to create our vision? And then it's a case of really choosing into the aligned actions, meeting our edge, tending our nervous system, holding ourselves through the wounding as we go, doing the work with Najas, if that feels aligned, like doing the work with Naja to understand and lean into our edges. And this is the work, this is what I've embodied, this is the choosing fully of our vision, of our soul, of bringing our soul business into the world. This is the work of deeper devotion. And I am going to leave it there, because those are some great inquiries for you to go into, to be able to see more. Like, inquiry and noticing is such a powerful practice. So this in itself, I also say, like, whenever I'm talking about remedies, bringing them alive, which I usually am on some level talking to some sort of archetypal remedy, this technology is not to be underestimated. When we hit up against energies that are being served in whatever form that might be, they're essentially being dosed, as whether that be as an archetypal mirror, a lens, whatever that's like, we work with archetypal remedies in many different ways, as archetypal almost like personality profiling, as archetypal mirrors and lenses, or we also can work with them as spirits and call them in, and there's lots of different ways we can work with them in practical remedy form. And these are all forms that I teach in this path. It's like the magical technology that's underlying this path is archetypal remedies. But I'm always usually serving it in some form. So if you're listening to this episode, there will be something activating in this that is essentially an essence. And this is what I mean, like, I am literally a remedy. I'm dosing right now. I'm serving Naja, and I'm serving that consciously and intentionally. Even though my essence, my remedy's essence, my soul essence is a particular flavour of a remedy, mine is phosphorus, there are also other remedies that I, as a guide, as a magical teacher and a teacher of the archetypal apothecary path, I will also teach some of the remedies that are remedy relationships for this path. And by that I mean there's certain remedies that I will serve intentionally for other women who are needing them. So yeah, that's the reason I share that is because the invitation is to treat this as though you have had a healing, to go gently, to drink water, to soften, to allow yourself more to be revealed about whatever you've seen in Naja. Naja is a potent remedy, and I've intentionally served her at a low dose because I am not wanting to activate you outside of a container where I can support you to a deeper level. So that is, all my work is intentional. And if you are feeling like this is like 100% me, I am holding space with Naja in all the ways I've described in June. So if that is feeling juicy to you, check out our website, and it's just under the work with me section. It's Naja, I think it's nicolebarton.co.uk/Naja, and have a little read and see if you feel called to join us. And again, just really tuning into what comes up for you in your body. Like, I am here to be of deep service. It is not compulsory for you to like join us if that is not aligned. So just to presence that, this is about being of service, and if you are feeling called to go deeper, then join us. If not, that's absolutely fine too. I am going to finish with, also before I do finish, I'm going to finish with the poem, was what I was going to say, but I would also love to hear, as always, what came alive for you in this episode. So please do join us in Secret Witch Society on Facebook, or share on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, and we're on TikTok, so basically all the forms. So have a little look for us at Archetypal Apothecary, or at I am Nicole Barton, and let me know what you loved about this episode. I'd love to hear from you. It's always a delight to hear from the women who are taking so much away, so please do share. And I'm going to complete with the poem because it's gorgeous, and as I say, it's like really about holding this sensation of moving into expansion, which is essentially what this whole path is about, to create our magical business. And this is the energetic that it takes to lean into creating a magical business from your full expression of medicine. And it's by Sukhvinder Sarkar as well. Also, I'm just going to say, I am going to read it in a minute, but I'm just going to say, like, I love that it starts with S for snake. That wasn't why I chose it, but I was just like, oh, look. Right, I'm going to read it now. Shh. She is travelling between worlds right now. You can see her holding the tension of not knowing. She's simply breathing into her unanswered questions. Sometimes she drinks her coffee with quaking hands, not knowing where her relationship or her bank account is going. But this time, she is holding on to the tension of not knowing, and is not willing to hit the panic button. She's unlearning thousands of years of conditioning. She is not being split between the opposing forces of fight and flight. She is neither naive nor ignorant. She is a frontier woman, paving new roads and making new choices. She's willing to make a new transcendent possibility emerge. You may see her now, standing at thresholds or at crossroads, breathing into her body, intently listening for inner signals. She's learning new navigation skills as she arrives at the most magical moment of her life. That is just gorgeous. It feels so loving, so powerful. And yeah, this piece about not being split between the opposing forces just really stood out to me, and the unlearning of thousands of years of conditioning with that witch wound. Alright, my loves, I will speak to you soon. That was a really vulnerable feeling episode for me. Here are my takeaways. When we feel the fear of rejection and judgment, it's never really about healing our surface level blocks, including that of feeling like we are failures for not bringing our spiritual business into the world. There's a deeper underlying wound that wants love. The self-help and personal development world has us fixated on fixing our blocks, but the lens of real magical technology opens us up to a new opportunity to heal and alchemize this wound. Naja, as an archetypal remedy, helps us to alchemize our self-expression witch wound fear of rejection and judgment, and heal the parts of ourselves that feel split between the opposing forces of spiritual business versus professional earth career. Sharing vulnerably is the medicine, but from our healed wounds, not from our open wounds. This is what has us call in our soul clients, those who really understand and feel our medicine, and those who we can serve fully. We won't always be immune from judgment or rejection as spiritual leaders, and that's okay. If we're here to be witchy leaders and medicine women, not everyone will love us, and that's a gift because it creates space for those who do. If you'd like to get the show notes and links for everything we've chatted about in this episode, head to www.secretwitch.co.uk. If you know a secret witch who would love this episode, please share with them to help them liberate themselves. And so you don't miss out on next week's episode, head to your podcast app of choice and hit subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.